Before America's Got Talent, you know, I was the starving artist, driving 12 hours to get to a show that I was barely making, you know, $200-300 on.
Well, obviously I have a disability. I think the technical term for it is being very handsome.
I don't know how many people can pinpoint the exact moment where everything changed for them. I can.
You are funny, you are a star, and I believe that you should be in the finals here.
At that point, my brain was like, all right, well, let's win this thing.
They'll be like, okay, Ryan, you don't want to learn to swim?
You know, that they kept eliminating people, and I wasn't one of them.
Ryan Niemiller! These are the 3 best new acts in the country.
That feeling of just, I could be a millionaire in the next, like, 10 minutes. You know, it was right there.
The act finishing in 3rd place, Ryan Niemiller!
It's hard not to think maybe I could have done more. You know, give me one more set and I'll win it, I promise. But I didn't have that chance.
Give it up for Ryan Niemiller!
My life has still changed in such amazing ways. Now, instead of me driving 5 hours, like, I'm having fans drive 5 hours to come see me.
You are among the best of the best in the world.
I feel like I belong here, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to go show people what I got.
I am one of those people that got very close.
Welcome back to our podcast, Fuck the Norm. And this week I've got an amazing guy. He's kind of been on our screens recently due to Netflix, and you may recognize him from America's Got Talent. And it's Ryan Niemiller.
Hey, how we doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good, thank you. You know what? I expected a round of applause, and I should probably edit that in, shouldn't I? At some point.
I absolutely should. I told you when I agreed to do this, if I didn't hear constant cheers and adulation, that I was out. So fix that.
Yeah, no, I might have to do this in post. But no, listen, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I understand that we're at weird time zones. You're in America and I'm over here in the UK. Is it midday there, right?
Yeah. So it's about 12:30 or so here. It's still like weird for me to adjust because I just moved from Indiana, which is Eastern time zone, to California. So I'm still adjusting to being 3 hours behind what I was used to. Then let alone you're way over there. I don't know what time it is. So I assume it's about 4 a.m. there or something. I don't know.
So moving to California, does that mean that you're going to have to, you know, get a red sports car? You're going to start getting loads of plastic surgery. Now, is that what you're going to be about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already, I've already started to price check some really big fake tits. I think it's going to be a good look for me, I think. It's the thing that's going to push me to the next level.
Why not? You know, be different.
That's
okay,
my friend.
So for anyone that doesn't know who you are, or they haven't heard of you, I haven't seen you yet, give us a bit of information about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and yeah, what you do at the moment.
Sure, yes. So I am a stand-up comedian. I've been doing it for about 13 or so years now. And I'm most notably known, I got 3rd place last season on America's Got Talent.
These are the 3 best new acts in the country, but you know the score. Only one can win, so let's find out who's finishing in 3rd place. Ryan Niemiller. Ryan, I'm so sorry, brother.
I never thought, 5 years ago, someone that looks like me would have never even been allowed to be on television like this. So to be able to get this far, 3rd place ain't bad. I will definitely take that. Thank you all so much. Club Nub is alive and well, baby.
I'm officially the 3rd most talented person in all of America. That's official. They voted on it, so that means it's real. Yeah, it's just that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm an old road dog, so I've been grinding for a long time. Doing little dive bars and just weird shows. I've performed at churches and these tiny bars and just open on the street, just like kind of grinding for years and not making a lot of headway, and then finally got a huge opportunity and luckily took advantage of it because I was ready after all that time. But yeah, I'm a grinder. That's kind of how I describe myself.
Good. So, okay, just a bit more context. You finished third in season 14, right?
Yes.
So that was last year, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so since then, what's been happening? Because you must have been busy.
I was super busy up until the world kind of shut down a couple months ago. I was going nonstop. So like the show ended here on a Wednesday night. I flew back home Thursday and then was on the road Friday and was pretty much on the road constantly until everything kind of was forcefully shut down. So I was a busy guy. It was very cool. It was interesting kind of dynamic because, like I said, I've been doing comedy for 13 years. And this was the first time that people were ever coming to see me on purpose instead of me just being like a happy surprise, because I was always good. People enjoyed what I did, but they didn't know who I was ahead of time. They would just be going to a comedy show and I'd happen to be there. So then having people that were telling me like, oh, we drove 6 hours because this is the closest you were ever going to be, like that was pretty crazy for a while. And hopefully they still want to do that when we're allowed to kind of get back out there again. But yeah, I was busy and it was tiring, but it was exactly what I was trying to do for so long.
What was so how did you find like things like, people recognizing you in the street or, people knowing about you before you know about them?
Yeah, it's flattering. Like, I'll tell you that. I don't want to make it sound like I don't appreciate it because no one has to care. That's kind of the way that I've always sort of described any of that. Just because I was on a TV show doesn't mean anyone had to like me. So the fact that anyone's like taking the time to be like, oh my God, you're that guy, let's get a picture. Like, I'll happily do that. But it can be a little weird. I found it was more weird for like my family and like loved ones. Like the first time, I think it was after the first audition aired here, which was last June, my sister and I were just going to just a garage sale, nothing too fancy. And then like having somebody, as we were walking up to the garage sale, just go, "Crippled threat!" was like, my sister was like, what the hell is happening? Because your family doesn't see you that way, like they just see you as like, I'm just her annoying ass brother who's been, making her life hell since we were kids. And now suddenly all these people like want to talk. So it's a little surreal in that regard too, but it's kind of, if you're doing your job right, it's kind of one of the side effects.
I feel like, because you just shouted crippled threat, you should explain what that is, because you told me before, because I asked you, but just to make sure that everyone understands what's going on.
Oh, yes. So Crippled Threat is the name I go by. It's I'm the Crippled Threat of comedy. It's kind of my tagline. Since you're recording this, people can see, if they don't know, I have a disability in my arms. It was actually going to be my wrestling name. So that's where that came from. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. That was the original dream before I realized it's really hard on the body to do that. So this is a little safer. I rarely get my ass kicked doing comedy. So yeah, that was sort of the name. And I liked the name so much that I didn't want to abandon it after the wrestling thing didn't work out. So I just kind of transitioned it to the comedy tagline instead.
I like it. It sticks in your head. You can remember it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a good play on words. It's all, a lot of this is marketing and branding and getting something to do. And I was very happy and fortunate that AGT went along with it. Yeah. Because I had this worry that, like, even though it was coming from me, someone who obviously has a disability and is coming from awareness and then getting this out there and like showing that people with disabilities can get some cool stuff done. Cripple is still kind of a word that people might be like, I don't know. So I'm glad that they actually just like trusted me and let me run with it. I'm the one saying it. It's fine. We're all on the same page here.
No, well, you can see why they'd be worried about it, especially because it could be considered, offensive or whatever. But no, if your humor, I mean, I've watched you, listened to you. You can tell it's your sort of sense of humor.
So I love being a stand-up comedian. This is what I always wanted to do. I have had other jobs in the past, though. I used to juggle chainsaws. It went well for a while. I had to get out, couldn't take the politics, is what it was.
I'm glad they saw it too, because because it's one of those things. A lot of people always ask this type of stuff, and like they're really supportive of the acts and they want you to do well, but they also have advertisers, and there's a lot of other things that go into. They're a TV show. They're not a show to let comics be comics. Like that's not what their thing is. At the end of the day, they need people to watch. That's how it's a successful show. So I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad they trusted me enough to okay, you do your thing. We're gonna believe that this is gonna be fine, and it was.
Okay, so we know where you are, we know who you are, we know what you're doing at the moment. You actually sort of led me into it by mentioning you wanted to be a wrestler. So let's go back in time. So what's life like for Ryan Niemiller growing up? By the way, is that your real name, Ryan Niemiller? You're not changing that? It sounds like an actor's name, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a name that I wish 13 years ago I would have done a stage name, because up until recently, even now, I've been on television several times. People can't spell my last name. Mm-hmm. And so I had so much problem with people would see me at a show. They would say my name. If you're an unknown comic, nobody's registering what your name is because they don't know if you're funny or not yet. Yeah. So I go up there, they haven't registered my name. I do well, and then they couldn't remember who the hell I was. So they'd be looking up Ryan Miller, Ryan E. Miller. It's a garbage name for for the stage, but it's my name, so it works.
So going back to Ryan Niemiller's childhood, let's go back to school. So in school, is this where wrestling came into it? Because I remember wrestling was big when I was younger.
Yeah. So I really, I'm 38 now. So I'm kind of in that perfect age. I was in high school when the Attitude Era, all the Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and I got really big. I'd been a wrestling fan even before that. It was sort of my escape. I kind of liked how over the top and theatrical, and the two things I've always loved is performing and sports, and wrestling was kind of a good combination of the both of those things. Because obviously, I don't think I'm breaking any new ground here by saying that pro wrestling's scripted. It's not, it's not on the level. But it is but it's a very athletic thing. Obviously they're great athletes. They're, you can't just casually do that. Like I said, I trained to do it. It was so much harder than any of the real sports that I played, because I played sports growing up my entire life. Wrestling was way harder for that, because you're also performing. That's where it's tricky. People don't understand that you're also putting on a show while also trying not to die. So it's I kind of fell in love with it, and that was sort of where I thought my performance was going to go. It was sort of my escape. I talked about it a lot on AGT, but my dad was an alcoholic and we were pretty poor. So I'm an old trailer park kid, and it was one of those things. This was a world that was different. You could be whoever you wanted to be.
I can picture myself in the ring. I'm lifting 300-pound guys up, slamming them to the ground, and there's no bigger drama than that. It wasn't gonna be oh, here's a poor handicapped guy. It's no, he's a badass. He's gonna take care of business. They turn their back on the crippled threat. I'm gonna knock them out. That's just all there is to it.
When I went to college, I was getting a theater degree because I thought that acting. I was never going to be the best athlete in the world, but I figured I could be the best actor that's there. And I was doing improv comedy and stuff like that, and that sort of, I fell in love with that kind of aspect. And then when my body couldn't handle all the abuse that pro wrestling is, I was I'll just be funny instead. And it kind of transitioned. So when I moved to California at that point, right after college, I just started stand-up, and away I went.
So you actually took it seriously. So because I'm not sure if back then it was normal or if it was different. So I know that everyone was into wrestling back then. So was it normal for everyone to want to be a wrestler, or were you actually taking it seriously and other people were yeah, it's cool, but you were doing something different?
I think it's like a lot of other things like that, that are big and tough. I think when people will be yeah, I'd love to be a basketball player. I'd love to be in the NBA. But for most people, that's kind of where it ends. You know, like how people like, oh, I would love to win an Oscar. I would love to be on America's Got Talent, but they don't really know what the steps are. They don't take the kind of times. I'm not always that organized with everything I do, but when it came to like these type of passions, I was like, okay, I want to be a wrestler. Let's find a wrestling school. Let's start working. Let's do that. And then when it came to like comedy, it wasn't just, oh, this seems like a fun thing I want to do. I'm like, no, I want this to be my career. So let's go to open mics. Let's move to where it's going to be. Let's get on the road. Let's get these headshots. Let's do everything that way. And that's kind of how I've always looked at least that aspect of my life, is that, you know, comedy's hard. This is a hard business. No one owes you a damn thing. And especially having a disability, people are really, they assume you're going to be something before you've even opened your mouth. So I've had to work really hard against that too. But for me, I didn't want this to be just a fun thing that I do. I want to buy my house with this. I want to pay my bills. I'm not good at real jobs. I don't have the patience. I don't have the, you know, the focus to sit behind a desk, you know, for 9 hours a day. So I was like, this has to work, because I will be miserable doing anything else.
I couldn't pitch you in an office, and you'd last about 5 minutes, I reckon.
Oh yeah, it was tough. I've worked a couple jobs like that, because comedy is it's an expensive hobby for a long time. You're definitely putting more into it than you're making for a while. And so I've had to work those jobs, and I've had perfectly wonderful career jobs that people love and, you know, buy their house with. And the whole time I was in there, and I was doing well at them too. It's not like I was just slogging through. Like if I'm going to do something, I do it right. And, you know, having like making the best money I've ever made in my life, and like having insurance as an adult, which was different for me. I don't know how much you know about the healthcare system here, but it's a little iffy at times. so to kind of finally have that as an adult, but still like the whole time I was like, I felt like I was in a cage. I was like, I got to get out there and do what I love, because this isn't me. So I know how I'm wired. And so I had to make this work.
Actually, I find that interesting, because so how old were you when, say, you was interested in wrestling, first trying to get into wrestling? How old were you then?
I would have been late teens. So when I actually did the wrestling school, I think I was 21.
Okay.
But it was kind of like, oh, this is what I'm going to go for, probably when I was 14, 15, 16.
Okay. So you saw something right. So you've seen a passion, you've seen something you want to do. How the hell did you know what the first step was?
I didn't. That was the thing. It was sort of the time when, around when I was really getting into it, like, you know, 96, 97 was when I first got the internet.
Okay.
So I'm like in that weird age where like I remember the time before. But
I still do.
Yeah. It's a very weird thing to know that like people now, like anyone really much younger than us, like just doesn't know that time. So it's like I understand what it was like to have that. You know, we still had dial-up. You know, so if someone called, it was gonna kick you off the internet.
Yeah. Screams upstairs. Put the phone down. I'm trying to download.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just started doing a little searching on that. Like when I get passionate about something like that, I will, you know, I'll research and I'll find people to talk to. And kind of what happened, I guess I was posting on a couple of like message boards, like wrestling message board. I was a real big internet wrestling nerd kind of guy. And there was a couple people who had their own ring. They were independent wrestlers in Southern Indiana, which is where I'm from. And they were like, hey, we got a ring. So if you want to come do this, we'll help train you. And I did that and got my ass kicked and, and then decided comedy was better.
The reason I found that interesting is because there's a lot of people that say, I want to do something. And then they go, what's the first step? And they don't know what it is, so they don't do it. And actually, because it looks like you've seen something you want to do, you just took a step, and then that's led somewhere else, and that's led somewhere else. I was wondering if that's then been the same journey you went with your comedy.
Oh, absolutely. So when I first moved out to California, because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't realize that you could start comedy elsewhere. Mm-hmm. I thought the way that it kind of worked in the States was I knew comedy like existed other places, but I thought you had to go to New York or LA first. I thought that's kind of where you had to start, because that's kind of like the epicenters of all that here. So I basically, as soon as I graduated college, I had an old roommate who was working in Los Angeles, and he had a spare room, and he was basically like, as long as you're trying and you're not just sitting around doing nothing, I won't charge you rent, which was very sweet of him, because people don't do that, you know, all the time. It's expensive out here. So to have that, and then I went out there and I didn't know what else to do. So I literally did like an internet search for like comedy school or something like that. And there's a comedy club near where I was living called the Ice House. It's in Pasadena, California. And there was a class being taught there. And so I was like, I guess that's what you do. So I did the class, and, you know, even though the class itself, it was kind of more for people who had never performed at all. I already had some theater background and kind of knew that. But kind of like what you were saying, though, it worked really well because, like, you're there, and then you meet these people who know about this open mic, and then you go to that open mic, and then you meet people there who know about these shows, and it kind of just snowballs. And it's a pretty, like, stand-up comedy is a pretty small community in the grand scheme, where everyone kind of knows everybody in some degree. So just kind of like just being around, like if you're likable and you're easy to work with, you'll get opportunities. And that's kind of what I did. It let me get funnier, because when you first start, you're terrible. That's just the nature of comedy. Nobody knows. I mean, like, kind of like I think you were saying, you said you did like 3 shows, and it's rough. It's rough. Like, and everyone's terrible. Like the first year or two is literally just about keep doing it, because you're not going to be good. You might be okay for that level. I'm embarrassed to watch anything that I did back then now. But it's all about that networking. Because people liked me and I was easy to work with, I would get to do this show and then do that show and that show. And it kind of just snowballs. It takes a long time in this business to kind of get those opportunities. And, luckily it's just taking that first step. A lot of times, if you have your ears and eyes open, it can lead to the next step, which leads to the next step. And then 12 years later, it got me on America's Got Talent.
I think it's important as well, the fact that you mentioned networking, but it's not just like you were networking. You put yourself in those situations where you were going to meet people who knew the things you needed to know. You know, you were around people that you wanted to be like, and you just soaked that up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like it always boggles my mind when I think so many people will mistakenly come into something like stand-up comedy and think that, like, oh, it's ultra competitive and I can't let anyone, you know, be close to me. I can't, like, because they're trying to take my spot. They're trying to do this. And it's actually like, there's a little bit of that. We all want to be in this position, but, you know, people will help you out. I luckily, I had like some good people I was attached with early on, like some good headliners that kind of took me under their wing, so to speak. And I learned pretty early that, like, in something like comedy, there's no such thing as like spots. No one's taking your spot, because, you know, if you're good and they want you, they'll find a spot for you. They'll make a spot. You know, I don't have to screw anyone else over because they were going to get it. Like, no, if they like us both, we'll both get it. Yeah. And kind of having that, like, in my head really early made it a lot easier, because one thing that was super important for me after AGT is I didn't have anybody that I know in comedy that was mad that I got it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, like, it's human nature. You'll sometimes, like, watch someone get this big opportunity, and you'll be like, oh, I was funnier than that guy. That guy was a dick. I can't believe he, you know, like I'm so much better than him. There's a little bit of like that. And fortunately, I didn't really have any of that. And that was important to me, because that meant that I kind of did it right. I did it kind of right by me, that I didn't step on anyone to do it. I didn't piss anybody off so that I could get these things. I just worked hard and finally got my shot.
Showed up, worked hard. At this point, do you know, so obviously, you're doing your classes, you're starting to attend comedy clubs, you've been around these people. But I'm remembering that you've just graduated college. Is no one turning around to you and going, get a real job, or stop doing this and focus? There's no one saying that to you.
Not really, at least not like aggressively. You get a little bit of that from your family, and it's not like my family was always very supportive as far as that stuff goes. I have found like I was fortunate that I didn't have the people who were like, your dreams are stupid. What are you doing? This isn't ever going to work. Get a real job. I had more, it'd be like my mom being like, I worry about you. I'm glad you're you're going for your dream, but maybe you should also do this at the same time because I don't want you to be homeless either. So it was more that, but luckily, the people that were closest to me, they sort of just they get how my mind works on that kind of stuff, and they know that like I'm not going to be happy, if I'm just kind of doing, if I was selling insurance or something like that, I was going to be miserable. So even though it kind of took me a while to get to that point, because it's tough. I spent, like I said, it was 12 years total before I got on AGT. So that's 12 years of not having a house, not having a lot of money coming in because you can't work good jobs and be on the road at the same time. So, it could be tough. Like, I had more battles with myself saying, get a real job, just because sometimes you get this pressure. I would see people I went to school with growing up, they own giant houses and they're married and they have kids. They kind of have like whatever, like the storybook version of the American dream as it was. And I'm still, sharing a house with 3 people in my 30s and, barely paying rent when I'm doing these bar gigs in the middle of nowhere. And it can weigh on you a little bit because you're not guaranteed an opportunity. Plenty of people who bust their ass don't get their shot. Sometimes there's luck involved too. Hard work is one thing. You need a little luck too. You need people on your side. So it was more pressure on myself sometimes to be like, okay, I knew I was good. I never had any doubts with that. It wasn't like a talent thing. It was more, is anyone going to take a shot on putting a dude with weird arms on television? I don't know. So, and luckily I held out just long enough.
And it is, especially in that industry, the reason I said real jobs, because it's considered to be, only the cream of the crop, the top of it's like really competitive to get to that high level where you can make big money. I mean, I feel like it's becoming more and more accepted as a career path now, but obviously you're coming through the ranks when that wasn't the norm, and people were probably looking at you going, oh, and you've got to tell yourself, I mean, I'm guessing you were all in. You were just like, this is all I'm going to do, and I know I'm going to get there.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be to a certain extent. For me, I want it to be a career, and you kind of have to be all in. There's a lot of people that are in comedy. When I was coming up, for them it was a hobby, and that's fine too. Like I'm not one of those elitists who is like, why are you wasting my time here by not taking it as serious as I? Like that's fine. Some people work a real job, and they work 60 hours a week and they're just tired and they want something fun to do. And for them, getting to do open mics occasionally is fun. And that's great. For me, I wanted to go all in because just like I was saying earlier, there was no backup plan that was going to make me happy.
I think that attributes to more than anything is that consistency and that like I said before, the showing up, the putting the work in, because I think a lot of people will chase their dreams and passions, and after a certain time, it plays in their mind and they go, well, how am I ever going to get where I'm going? And they start to doubt yourself, and that's the point they give up. But actually, the point when they give up is usually when they're about to make moves.
And for me, I was really close to that point too. Like I was working a pretty good job in Indianapolis that had a lot of mobility for me to move up. I was doing good at it. I was making good money. And I made one final call. This was probably 2 years ago at this point. So it was summer of 2018.
10 years in.
Yeah. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to do one big push towards comedy now. And if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't work, at least I can say I wasn't on the fence. Because I had never been full-time comedy before that point. I had always, had some sort of job because it's just how you have to survive. It's just part of the deal. You still got to pay bills. You can't pay your rent on hopes and dreams. They need actual money. But it was the thing. I was like, okay, I need to make one just for myself. I got to do one big push to see if I can actually make this work. And the jobs were kind of a safety net from doing that. So it was sort of the what's the old phrase? Shit or get off the pot. It was kind of that for me. I had to go make that attempt, and then I got pretty lucky because I quit the job in July, and then I found out in that November that I was going to get to audition for the judges on America's Got Talent. So luckily, it was kind of a quick turnaround for me. So I didn't have to wallow too much in it. But I almost that was the kind of crossroads. It was, do I just make this a hobby or do I go full blast at it? And full blast luckily won out.
And so, okay, where does America's Got Talent come into it? Because I'm guessing you must have applied, you must have seen it come up somewhere and you've gone, I'm going to go for this.
Yeah, I had been trying on and off for 5 years.
You tried applying before
to get on that show, yeah. So, and doing a variety of things, just showing up randomly. They got to know me a little bit, and then kind of having audition slots where I go to but I was just traveling to the cities to do it, and I guess it was getting closer and closer each time. They don't ever tell you that directly because they just can't. There's 70,000 acts or so that try every year. They can't give everyone a personalized, here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, I didn't find that out until after that I was close a couple times before that. But what did it for me, and I got very fortunate, it was kind of a perfect storm. That same summer before I got on the show, I had a video randomly go viral. It got 1.7 million views or something like that. It was an old stand-up clip from a show I did called Laughs. It was a Fox syndicated comedy show here.
A lot of people, when they first meet me, they don't know what to do about this. It gets really tense. It gets really uncomfortable. You guys remember. But a lot of times people just can't handle it all. They just can't handle that moment of intimacy, so they have to make it right for themselves. So what they do to ease that tension is they'll mention something to me that I can't do and then say that sucks. But they pick such weird stuff. I don't know if I should get mad at them, if I should hug them. I'll give you some examples. One guy, he was like, oh, Ryan, that sucks. You can't even yo-yo. Yep, that's the one. That's the one keeping me up at night. That's the one I just can't get past. This next one actually came from an 8-year-old girl, which was awesome, because if you're ever feeling pretty good about yourself, let an 8-year-old girl verbally kick you in the nuts. That'll fix that for you. This little girl, after she saw me and after she screamed, it was a big scream too, which, side note, has led me to a new game that I play. Now when I'm out in public and I see children staring at my arms, I like to pretend that I'm discovering them for the first time too. I'll be like, what are you looking? Oh my God! What happened? Call somebody!
And it just kind of caught fire for a little bit. Got a few views there, and I was able to show them. I kind of contacted them again after I didn't make it the year before, and I was like, hey, I would love to try again. I want to audition again. Here's this new thing that happened. Yeah. And because they saw the video, and the video was for a TV taping, so they could see what I looked like doing for television. Because that's the tricky thing about stand-up. When you're performing, you're doing it for your audience. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a dive bar, you don't use the same energy that you use if you're on America's Got Talent. Yeah. They're two different types of audiences. But they want to see, when you audition for AGT, they want to see what it looks like on television. They're doing a television show, not a comedy show. So that was something I had to learn. But when they saw that video, they were like, oh, that's what this is. And luckily, that video is what got me on.
Why did that video go viral? If it'd been around for a while.
I have no idea. I think a lot of it was just luck. So it went viral through a group called Comedy Juice. They run like comedy shows and stuff here. My buddy he had bought the company, and he was really good at viral stuff. His name's Steve Hofstetter. A lot of people know him. He's a tall, red-headed comic. He does a lot of heckler videos. So people try to,
Rings a bell to me, that.
Yeah. People try to mess with them, and he's really quick-witted. So like, he's got a huge online following and has had a ton of viral videos from, dealing with hecklers and things like that. So he kind of knew how to market it a little bit. And that stand-up show that I talked about, Laughs, that was actually his show. Right. So we were buddies. And so he kind of asked me like, hey, we already have this footage. Do you care if we kind of put it on here and see if we can do something with it? And I went, I don't have to do anything. No new work whatsoever. And he's like, nope. And I'm like, cool, do it. And luckily it was just one of them that people gravitated to and liked.
So again, you say it's luck, but actually you can trace that. You can trace it back to you going to that show, you making friends with that guy, you keeping connected to that guy, you applying to America's Got Talent 4 or 5 times. I feel like you're attracting it. I know you say, I get it's luck, but I feel like you've attracted some of this sort of energy, positive energy, or something that's bringing these opportunities along.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends on how you want to phrase it. I can't remember what the exact phrase, but what like luck is like hard work and opportunity. That's kind of what it is. And I know you have to like bust your ass to get yourself in that position. But sometimes like the final call for that, like I had done everything I possibly could to get myself in the right position, but somebody at America's Got Talent had to say, okay. There was nothing that I couldn't force anyone to say yes, to that. Someone had to look at it and be like, okay, here's the deal. And sometimes, you can kind of think, my brain works this way sometimes. What if that person had been in a bad mood that day? What if that person had seen, 30 terrible stand-up comics before that and was just sour on the idea of stand-up comedy that day? And this went, another one, nope. So you just never know. So the best you can do is put yourself in the best position you can, and just kind of be ready when you get that shot.
Well, I think it's amazing that you seem, for me, it seems like perseverance, preparation, practice, and just figuring it out as you go along. They're the key things that I'm pulling out of it. Yeah,
and it's kind of what it was, because, you don't know the template. Like I didn't know back in 2006 when I first started what the path exactly was. And a lot of it's false starts, but it's trying something, it's getting out there. And I knew right away, like the things I could control, doing open mics, being present, not being a dick. That's something you can control, like you can be pleasant to be around. Like that's something that you have power over. You can't, excuse me, you can't make America's Got Talent say yes. You can't like force a producer to be like, here's your shot. But you can work hard and write and perform and just be ready to go. And that's all you could do, and then just hope for the best.
So you get your application accepted. You're in the first auditions, they're all filmed, aren't they? Everything's filmed, the America's Got Talent. Or do you do stuff beforehand?
Yeah. So because they don't know at the time, you have a pretty long filming day. So when you come in and do your first audition, there's no guarantee that you're on television. They're not at that point yet. Like there's nothing that's promised to you. The only thing you're promised is you get to go out there and have an audition in front of the judges. Okay. Like that's all you're promised. But they do a pretty packed filming day because they get a lot of footage of everybody because they don't know who's going to do well. They don't know who's going to have a moment where, they just completely have a meltdown. They don't know who they're going to have on there for footage. So you do a lot of filming. And it was a very stressful day. It's because it's tiring. Because they film, you're doing like probably 6, 7, 8 hours of other stuff. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the most important 2 minutes of your life. Go out there and crush it now. So it was a very surreal experience.
And then the next, once you get through that first sort of audition, you're in the show. Are you allowed to tell people what's going on, or is it on TV as you're doing it?
No. So at that point, the first couple rounds, they tape ahead of time. So you're basically the first 2 rounds you're working to get to the live shows. Like that's kind of the prize for those first 2 rounds. So that was such a strange experience because the show I think started airing late May, early June, and my first audition was filmed in March, and the judge cuts was filmed in April. So obviously I knew personally that it went well, you know, but you have this 2 months, you're not allowed to say anything at all. So like it was a weird sensation to know that like, you know, your life is going to change in a huge way, but it hasn't yet. Yeah. And you can't talk to anybody about it. The only people that like, and we kind of took care of each other a little bit was a couple of the other acts. So you become friends with the other people on the show, you know, so, you know, I remember during that time, because I was on the same judge cut that Dom Chambers, so he's a magician, beer magician from Australia. He's one of my best friends in the world now. But like we spent a lot of time kind of just talking to each other, like holy shit, this is gonna get really crazy. You know, it was such like this like, those are the only people you could bond with really, because you can't talk to, you know, your family really unless they were there. I was super proud of my mom. I was really worried. I love my mom. I think anyone that watched the show saw I have a great relationship with my mother. She's the sweetest woman in the world, but she's such a proud mom. I was so scared that she was going to accidentally spill the beans, you know, because she was there, you know, she was filmed there for all that. So I was terrified that my mom was going to be like, okay, don't tell anyone else.
Tell everyone.
You know, and it turns out the whole thing falls apart. So I was super proud of my mom. But yeah, it was a scary time because you just don't know. You know, I have a few friends that have done America's Got Talent and done really well. So I could at least get a general idea, but I couldn't even tell them. I can't be like, hey, so I made the live shows here. What do I do next? You know, it still had to be like very vague when you're kind of talking about it. So it was a weird time.
Yeah. So you've now got this platform essentially where people now know who you are. They know what you do. They know what you're all about. And like, even in the UK, like I said, you're Netflix, so everyone's sort of hearing about you. And I guess to a lot of, especially to younger people who want to do what you've done, or maybe they've got a disability and they want to do something different. Are you finding that people are reaching out and asking you for help, advice, support, or, you know, are you finding?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's very cool actually, you know, like that was sort of a side effect I didn't exactly intend. Yeah. But it's a nice feeling. Especially with, you know, I never got into this business to like champion disability rights or anything like that. For me, I was just a funny dude who happens to have weird arms, you know, and I like making people laugh. Like that's kind of how I went into it. Like this just happens to be a thing that makes me unique that I can talk about. But one of the cool things that's kind of happened is, you know, I said it during my audition and I meant it, you know. When I was growing up, there was no one that looked like me on television. And there still really isn't. It's a little better, but like there's not people with like noticeable disabilities who are on TV in prominent spots. And so for me, like it was like, if no one else is going to do it, well, screw it. I'll try to figure it out then. So just to kind of some of the like the messages and like DMs and comments and all that I've gotten from people, either that have disabilities themselves or are parents of children with disabilities, like, and they're like, you know, my son has, you know, a similar disability, and just seeing someone that looks like him on television has given him this new confidence that he can get some stuff done is a really cool feeling. Like I said, it wasn't intended, not why I'm doing this directly. I'm a attention whore. That's why I'm doing this, you know. I like being the center of attention. But it's a nice little side effect to know that you're making this impact And that I took advantage of the opportunity as well. I didn't go out there and squander it. You know, I was able to go out there and just be funny, but I was also able to make those comments, you know, talking about, you know, people don't want to book people with disabilities very often. And like, I got to kind of have that platform to champion a little bit too. And it meant a lot to me.
It comes with the territory, doesn't it? Naturally, that people are going to look up to you, and they're going to see you as a role model now. Because, especially like you said, if you've never seen, when you were younger, you didn't see anyone that looks like you or had anything similar to what you had. So, you know, I guess for these kids now, you sort of a ray of hope, because they, you know, if they want to do something different, or they've thought about how they can change their lives or do something that they've always wanted to do and chase. It's not just that. You're not just. It's not just like you know you have a disability, but actually you did something completely different. You chased your dreams, and that in itself is a thing that not very many people do.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's one of those things that, you know, on paper, I had a lot against me. You know, like I had a lot. Like this is not a business that is super friendly to people who look like me. You know, for better or worse. You know, it's not the comics, but like, you know, bookers have a certain way that they think. They think that like, oh, our audiences here in, you know, middle America don't want something, this is too real for them. So we want stuff that's safe, that's predictable, that we know, you know, it's going to sell. We don't want to take these chances. And, you know, having that against me, I probably should have quit many times, but luckily I was too stupid to do so and just kind of kept going through. Because I knew I was good. That was never an issue. Like anytime I ever like waned, it was always frustration with the business. It wasn't that I ever doubted what I could do. It was just doubting, is anyone gonna see that and take that chance? Yeah. And you know, that's why I pursued AGT as hard as I did, because I know AGT is a format that, you know, for me, like had I got on something like The Tonight Show, that would have been amazing. But you don't get to tell your story on The Tonight Show. You know, I think part of what resonated with me and why I did so well, that I was actually able to tell my story too. It wasn't just going up there and telling jokes for 2 minutes and then moving on with my day. I actually got to connect as a person, like talk about what I went through, what it's like for me, how hard that can be. And that's what resonated. And that's why, like, an AGT gives a great platform for that. They sometimes get they get a lot of shit sometimes for like, oh, they do all these sob stories, but like they're human stories. You know, there's a lot of people out there that connect with struggle and hardship and overcoming that. And it was the perfect platform for me.
I think a lot of people are maybe too proud. Well, not proud, but they see it as a sign of weakness to talk openly about the things that they go through or the struggles that they face. And actually, as a result of that, everyone seems to view the world through these social media rose-tinted goggles. But actually, having a real opportunity to just be open and honest and transparent about this is who I am. I think that's why people engage with it as well, is because they align themselves with that and go, I can't talk about it, but I know that he is.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with, like, you know, people recognizing you. That's why that show is so strange for that, because like people really get to know you, so they think they know you really, really well. I remember, like, it was the first time after I was kind of out with my my girlfriend, and somebody kind of came up to us and was like, "Ryan, how are you, buddy?" And I had this conversation and took a picture and everything was fine. And then she was like, "Did you know that guy?" And I was like, "I have no clue who that is." You know, so people kind of approach you like in this way because they know you in their eyes, like they know you as a person. And you know, sometimes they can get a little in your space, but it's also nice because you know you've connected with them on a deeper level than just, oh, he was funny, and then that's it.
I read a quote about it was like a motivational quote, and it was saying that people, you might not know these people, but the people that you're impacting in your life, you know, you might not see that you're impacting them, but actually they need you to rise so that they can believe in themselves, that they can rise. And you'll be impacting people and you won't even know who they are. And in 10 years, you'll get a message of someone who's successful and they'll say, it was because of you and taking the piss out yourself on stage that pushed me to this point.
Hey, whatever it takes, you know, I'm enjoying it. And if other people are getting something out of it too, I'm happy to do it. You know, it's one of those things that I think I mentioned it earlier, but like no one has to like you, like no one has to care. And I'm so grateful that anyone, you know, is excited to like meet me or see me. You know, if the worst thing I have to do is take 15 seconds to say hi and take a picture, I think my life's pretty sweet. You know, if that's the most annoying thing that happens because of this success, like, because they could just tell you to, you know, piss off, you know, just as easily, you know, so it's why I try to be very interactive. If anyone takes the time to message me, I'll reply back. You know, I think I got back to you pretty quick,
Yeah.
you know, from that.
So, yeah.
Because, yeah, because like, you don't have to give a shit at all, you know, so, and I appreciate that you do. So it's the least I can do.
I'm gonna just, well, there's a couple of questions I wanted to say. One was what's next, and the other one was what would you tell yourself? So I guess what's next? Obviously, you don't really know because of lockdown, but
yeah, hopefully I want to get back on the I'm itching to work. You know, like that's the it's been a little weird during this time because like the first like 2-3 weeks, and at the time we didn't know how kind of serious this all was. So for me, I loved that first 2-3 weeks because I've been going hard.
Yeah.
I was busy. I was barely sleeping. I was sleeping in planes and like I was crazy all over the place. So for me, at first, I was like, cool, 2 weeks that I can sleep and, you know, be at my apartment and actually relax. And but now I'm ready to get back to work. So the next thing, my calendar is technically full for the rest of the year, but kind of just like everyone else, we're all in a case by case. I want to work, but I also don't want to put myself in danger. I don't want to put anyone else that comes to the shows in danger. So I'm kind of working on some projects here and there, just stuff I can do by myself at home, you know, getting some writing done, working on some things that I've been wanting to work on for a while. Part of like that was moving out here to California. As much as I loved, you know, the Midwest where I was living, that's kind of more my speed. I want to, like, you kind of have to be out here where the action is sometimes, you know, because I don't want, you know, in 5 years, if I'm still the guy from America's Got Talent, I screwed up somewhere. You know, like it was a great platform and I loved it, but I don't want it to be the last thing I'm known for. I want to do, there's more things that have to happen. So
you'd be that funny guy with fake tits, remember?
Exactly. Yeah, we need a hook. Yeah, everyone needs a gimmick. Got to reinvent yourself.
Last question, and then I'll pause recording. So if you can go back to talk to yourself, and you're 15 years old, so that's probably the age you're coming out of. Over here, it's high school. I think over there, it's secondary school, whatever. What advice would you give yourself?
Honestly, the kind of thing is just, I would say just trust your instincts. I appreciated the process of what got me to where I am now. You know, it was a long road. 12 years is not a short amount of time to work towards something. In theory, I could have gotten it faster had I just trust the process a little more and not had that like little bit of doubt that would creep in. Like don't think you have to do what everyone else does. You know, because there was some pressure, you know, I always fought through it, but kind of like, well, my friend's married, I should probably be married by now, right? Like they have kids, why don't I have kids? You start worrying about that. Don't compare yourself to what anyone else is doing, and just realize that everyone has their own schedule. Some people get their life figured out at 22 and they know their path and they're happy. I'm 38 and I still really don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm enjoying myself at least.
All right, thank you very much for taking the time out to chat to me, and hopefully people will take some sort of knowledge and inspiration out of what you said.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, and anyone that's watching, thank you guys so much for the support. Find me on social media. I'm at crippled8 on everything, and like I was saying, if you say hi, I'll say hi back. I got nothing but time right now, so let's do this.